February 1st, 2026 comes at a moment when WNBA players are gearing up for what may become the most intense labor fight the league has ever seen. With a possible lockout threatening the entire season, Caitlin Clark will be sitting courtside at Madison Square Garden. But she will not be on the floor. She will be breaking down LeBron James and the Lakers for NBC primetime basketball coverage, earning money, growing her profile, fully protected from whatever happens to the WNBA season. And if you believe this is just a coincidence, you have not been watching how power really operates in professional sports. NBC did not select Caitlin Clark for a feel-good diversity moment. They chose her because she holds something the WNBA urgently needs but cannot fully control: leverage. The kind of leverage that allows someone to step away while others are scrambling for scraps. And the fact that this announcement landed right as the collective bargaining agreement sits on the edge exposes an uncomfortable truth many people have quietly discussed for months. The WNBA biggest star carries more power outside the league than within it. Let us be absolutely clear about what NBC is putting on the table. This is not a small guest spot or a quiet test run hidden on a secondary broadcast. February 1st. Lakers vs. Knicks at Madison Square Garden. This is the highest profile regular season NBA matchup you could realistically create. LeBron James and Anthony Davis facing a rising Knicks squad in the arena that defines basketball prestige. And NBC is placing a 22-year-old WNBA player with no professional TV analyst experience at the center of that broadcast. If you care about what is really happening beyond the headlines, hit that like button now, because what comes next reshapes how you understand power in women basketball. Here is why this is so remarkable. Look at the company Caitlin Clark will be sitting with: Maria Taylor, one of the most respected voices in sports media; Carmelo Anthony, a Hall of Fame scorer who defined a generation; Vince Carter, arguably the greatest dunker the game has ever seen; Tracy McGrady, whose style was pure art; Reggie Miller, one of the most clutch shooters in basketball history. This is not NBC easing her in carefully. They are placing her shoulder to shoulder with legends and trusting she belongs. They are launching Basketball Night in America, their version of Football Night in America. And they decided a WNBA player barely into her 20s is critical to that launch. This is strategic protection. And it is smart. If the WNBA season is pushed back or paused because of CBA talks, NBC still has Caitlin Clark active in their basketball programming discussing the NBA. If the season proceeds as planned, they already have the league's biggest draw embedded into their broadcast system, giving them serious leverage in future WNBA rights discussions. And if she proves to be a natural on camera, which seems likely given how she has handled pressure her entire career, they have created a media figure who could anchor coverage for the next 20 years. But this is where things get uncomfortable for the WNBA. The collective bargaining agreement ends in October 2025. Players are already openly discussing sitting out the 2026 season if their needs are not addressed. They want better pay, improved travel, expanded rosters, and a larger share of the revenue their work creates. These are fair demands from athletes who have watched the league value explode while their compensation barely moves. Many of you have said this for weeks. The players deserve more. But Caitlin Clark has just shown something that changes the entire negotiation dynamic. She has alternatives that do not depend on the WNBA season taking place. Consider what she already has locked in. Her Nike deal represents generational money, a signature shoe, and an endorsement package that places her in a financial category few athletes ever reach. She has USA basketball obligations in March for World Cup qualifiers, keeping her visible and paid through spring regardless of league outcomes. And now she has this NBC deal carrying her through May 2026 with Media income most WNBA players can hardly imagine. If the players' union chooses to hold out if the 2026 season is delayed or canceled, Caitlin Clark does not face the same pressure as most players. She can wait. She can let talks drag out. She can walk away if the deal is not right because her income does not rely on the season starting on time. Now compare that reality with nearly every other player in the league. Most WNBA athletes rely on their salaries just to get by. Many play overseas in the off-season to survive financially. They do not have signature shoes or eight-figure endorsement deals. They do not receive calls from NBC offering alternative income streams. For them, a delayed season is not a minor inconvenience. It can be financially devastating, and everyone at the bargaining table knows it. This is the weakness the title promised. This is not about Caitlin Clark abandoning the WNBA or turning her back on teammates. It is about how the league economic structure has produced a reality where their most valuable asset, their biggest attraction, their only true mainstream star holds more leverage outside the league than within it. She can generate more attention discussing NBA games than many WNBA teams create by playing them. She draws more interest talking about LeBron James than most players generate, even in championship moments. NBC recognized this. They studied the numbers, and the evidence is clear. When Caitlin Clark entered the WNBA, the league changed immediately. The Indiana Fever shifted from irrelevant to must-watch television. In a single year, attendance doubled across multiple markets. Ratings reached levels executives had stopped believing were possible. Merchandise sales surged beyond what systems could support. One player reshaped the economics of an entire professional league. NBC watched every bit of it. They saw Peacock subscriptions spike when her college games moved behind a paywall. They tracked social engagement that outpaced most NBA stars. They reviewed data showing she connects with audiences traditional basketball coverage often misses. And they made a choice. Wherever Caitlin Clark goes, the audience follows. They wanted her on their platform. Sam Flood, NBC executive producer, described her as one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball. Not women basketball. Basketball. That word choice matters. It shows exactly how NBC plans to frame her, not as a novelty but as someone who understands the game at the highest level and can explain it to fans who want real insight. But when you connect the dots, another issue emerges that the WNBA may not want to face. If Caitlin Clark can create this much value for NBC analyzing games she is not even playing in, what does that say about what the WNBA offers her? The league pays her a salary that, even though higher than most, still represents a tiny portion of the attention and revenue she brings. They give her a schedule that clashes with her most profitable endorsement opportunities. They provide a platform that reaches far fewer viewers than NBC can. And they ask her to carry a league that has not figured out how to monetize the attention she generates. Drop a comment with your opinion. Do you believe Caitlin Clark owes loyalty to the WNBA even if it cannot match her market value? Or is this simply smart business from someone who understands her worth? Because the debate happening in the comments is exactly what league leaders fear. What makes the NBC deal especially smart is the game selection. These are not random matchups. February 1st, Lakers versus Knicks. March 9th, Thunder versus Knicks. Two of the most attractive games on the NBA schedule. Two chances to prove her star power extends beyond playing. Two evaluations that will decide whether this becomes a long-term role or a short experiment. And both games fall during the most critical stage of WNBA CBA talks. Think about how that looks. While WNBA players may be preparing to strike, facing financial uncertainty, and watching their season hang by a thread. The league's biggest star will be on national television, regularly earning money, gaining exposure, and reminding everyone she has choices. Others do not. That is not just good timing. That is leverage. If you're a WNBA player watching this unfold, you have to confront some tough questions. If Caitlin Clark can land a deal like this while still playing, what does that mean for your own negotiating leverage? If NBC is willing to pay her to discuss basketball while the WNBA struggles to pay you to play, what does that reveal about how the sports media ecosystem values your work? The answer is uncomfortable but unavoidable. The WNBA has a star power issue. They have a single player who draws mainstream attention. One player who boosts ratings, attendance, and merchandise sales nearly at the level male athletes achieve. One player who can make NBC rethink their entire basketball programming strategy. And that player has realized she doesn't need the WNBA as much as the WNBA needs her. Some may argue this sounds harsh, that it's unfair to the league or Clark's teammates. But reading between the lines of this announcement exposes something league officials have long avoided admitting. The economic model is broken. For decades, the WNBA argued that more exposure, marketing, and investment would grow the audience. Then Caitlin Clark arrived and proved otherwise. The audience was always there. They just needed a reason to care. One player gave them that reason. And suddenly, the entire women's basketball infrastructure couldn't handle the demand she created. That's not Clark's fault. It may not even be the WNBA's fault, but it's reality. And reality carries consequences. When one player generates this much disproportionate value, they gain disproportionate influence. They access opportunities their peers don't. They have options that fundamentally shift how they approach contracts and career choices. Everyone else then has to adapt to a system where the rules have changed. The Michael Jordan comparison keeps coming up, but it's incomplete. When NBC involved Jordan, it was largely symbolic. He was there to generate hype and credibility, not provide regular analysis for scheduled appearances. Caitlin Clark is positioned differently. She has specific games tied to her appearances. She's joining an established panel expected to deliver real insight. And she's doing this while still an active player, offering a perspective retired analysts cannot match. But there's a darker side we need to consider. If the WNBA season is delayed or paused due to CBA negotiations and Clark is on TV every week covering NBA basketball, some fans may see that as a betrayal. They may argue she should use her platform for WNBA advocacy, not to build her personal brand covering male athletes. That criticism may not be entirely fair, but it's coming. If the labor dispute continues and players feel financial pressure while watching her succeed on NBC, tension could rise within the league. The optics of the highest-paid WNBA player analyzing millionaire NBA stars while her teammates fight for basic working conditions aren't ideal. Multiple sources hint at friction over how much attention and resources go toward Clark compared to others. This NBC deal doesn't reduce that friction, it heightens it. There's also the risk she becomes better known as an NBA analyst who happens to play in the WNBA, letting her media career eclipse her playing career before she reaches her prime. The women's game could lose its top star to broadcasting before she fully achieves on-court success. NBC wouldn't mind that. They'd welcome her becoming their flagship basketball personality, regardless of her playing career. But it would be a loss for the WNBA, one the league might never recover from. When these broadcasts start, we're not just seeing a player try analysis. We're watching the future of women's basketball economics unfold. We're seeing a test case for whether WNBA stars can pursue mainstream media careers while playing. We're watching NBC bet years that the Caitlin Clark phenomenon is sustainable, scalable, and valuable enough to build programming around. February 1st isn't just a broadcast. It's a statement about where power truly lies in women's basketball. It proves the traditional model, players relying solely on their league for income and exposure, no longer applies to athletes who command Clark-level attention. And it's a warning. The WNBA's most valuable asset knows she's worth more than the league is willing to admit. To stay ahead instead of reacting to headlines, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. When the CBA negotiations hit their critical stage, when real decisions about women's basketball's future are made, you'll want analysis connecting the dots before anyone else. In the next video, we'll break down how much leverage Caitlin Clark actually has in these negotiations and why the numbers may surprise you. This is how the game changes, not through dramatic announcements or policies, but when one player at a time realizes they don't have to accept assumed limits. The question remains, what happens when everyone else realizes it too?